Hello again. I'm Tripp Rogers. He's the Hall of Famer Mike Sheck. Welcome to the Fantasy Sultans Week 16, but it's also the week we pull the pole out of the crawl space. It's
Yep.
Fantasy Festivus, the
For the rest of
Festivus for the rest of us. And we look forward to this every year. I mean, can you tell we're Seinfeld fans? Can you
it.
tell? What gave it away? Could it be import exports? Could it be the incessant Seinfeld references we have on the show? I mean, I don't know. But here we are, Mike, week 16 in the NFL. And, we were talking before we started, what do I really have to grieve about this year? I'm running 3 teams. I'm in a championship game and 2 semifinals. What do I got to complain about? I'll find something, I'm sure. Week 15 in the NFL produced some surprises. I think fantasy, going forward, week 16, in terms of fantasy, this is some huge stuff because we have had 3 teams change quarterbacks. And if you were looking to pick up somebody, because again, quarterback position, you need somebody, especially if you're in 2 quarterback leagues, you got to get somebody else. I mean, this could affect you. Actually, 3 quarterback changes too, or 4 quarterback changes, because I forgot Drew Lock's back quarterback for the Giants. But you've got the Tennessee Titans going with Mason Rudolph and sitting their starter for most of the season. You've got the Atlanta Falcons putting the $140 million man on the bench because he stunk. And they got Michael Penix Jr. That was something that you questioned when they drafted him. Well, now's the reason they're going to do it. You also have the Browns changing quarterbacks. They're going back to DTR, and they're benching Jameis Winston. And, the one thing about the Browns is this is happening in real time on Hard Knocks. And they're focusing in on the team, the AFC North. This is happening in real time. And I just, again, in terms of fantasy, you talk about, funny things. And let's not forget the week 15 goose egg for Cooper Kupp. Yeah, how many people did he screw this week?
Yeah, and of course you got the Patrick Mahomes injury, high ankle sprain. Now, the Chiefs are playing for the number 1 seed, so he was at practice this week. You would think that maybe he's going to sit out a couple of games because of high ankle sprain. Well, it's something to watch and monitor. Not that he's lighting the world on fire to begin with fantasy performances. I think a lot of people this season expected more from him. He could be on the airing of grievances to an extent from fantasy perspective, but something to watch moving forward. I mean, this high ankle sprain, especially now that we're in fantasy playoffs, and if you drafted Mahomes, this is not ideal for you.
And the other part of it is with the Chiefs, with the way the season lays out, they have 3 games in 11 days. They're going to play on Saturday. They're going to play on Christmas Day on Wednesday. And I guess at this point, we should mention, number 1, join us on Sunday for Sunday with the Sultans. It's on the Fox Sports stations in New Jersey and foxsportsnewjersey.com. But secondly, next week, we got Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And so we'll get you. We're going to take care of you. We will take care of you. We will post our week 17 show. We'll get it posted probably Tuesday late. I'm not going to, Marion, you'll have it before the game's on Wednesday for Christmas. So you can have your morning Christmas and check real quick the Fantasy Sultans, and you're ready to go for the weekend. This is a tough bit of scheduling, but it's not like the teams didn't know this was coming. They knew it was coming, and 4 of the teams that are involved, are in the playoff hunt. And look at Buffalo. Basically, they're playing 2 Sunday games. They're sitting there in their normal schedule. They don't have to worry about it. It's a huge advantage for Buffalo at this point. And if you have Josh Allen, you got to be very, very happy. By the way, talking about fantasy week 15, where have you gone, Devontae Adams?
Mm-hmm.
First half, nothing. Yeah, Cooper Cup territory. Goose egg. Second half, 42 points. And I was there. I was in Jacksonville watching Aaron Rodgers and watching the worst defense I've ever seen. How do you not account for Devontae Adams? We're not talking about Antonio Gibson. We're not talking about the tight end. We're talking about the number one receiver for the Jets, and he was wide open. Wide open. That to me, I'm telling you, I think Doug Peterson should have been fired at that point. That was awful. Just awful.
Yep.
So, anyhow, week 15, we move on now to week 16. As always, we'll give you, it's Fantasy Festivus. So I think before we do import exports, Mike, we got to do the airing of grievances. We have our poll for Festivus. I find tinsel distracting. That's why we have the poll. We have the aluminum poll, got it out of the crawl space. We have our list of fantasy grievances. The Hall of Famer, kick it off.
That's right. We're going to start with CJ Stroud. You stink. You went off the board as an ADP between 50 and 60, and yet you only put up 3,200 yards, 17 total touchdowns, tied for 14th in the NFL. The monster numbers last season, not replicated. And to be fair, I did say you were going to be a disappointment in comparison to last year, and you couldn't smooth a silk sheet if you had a hot date with a babe. That's right. CJ in Houston, you have a problem. Oh, wait a minute. I lost my train of thought. Let's move on here. And moving on, we will go to the guy you affectionately call the blonde Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You were talking about Jacksonville?
Yes.
2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. I think bigger things were expected from you, Trevor, and your team in Jacksonville this season. Your team is currently 3-11. Your season ended with a concussion and a sprained AC joints, which involved surgery. How your coach, Doug Peterson, wasn't fired after your bye week is beyond me. Maybe he showed the owner a fake number at Atomic Subs. Blimey. All right. I'm going to continue the problems. That's right. Let's go to San Francisco 49er, Deebo Samuel Jr. I've got a problem with you. What happened to last year's Super Bowl? Boy, it went downhill from there. The wheels kind of fall off, and the injuries pile up for San Fran, including the biggest to your teammate Christian McCaffrey. 43 receptions, 569 yards, just one touchdown. Big question I want to know, is your Super Bowl window closing? Hey, no Deebo, no Deebo, no Deebo, no Deebo. All right, we'll move on to Travis Kelce in Kansas City. Plenty of scoreless yards, just 2 touchdowns. Major fantasy disappointment, particularly early on in the season. Significant drop in target production. I wonder if age is catching up with you, or maybe it's too much scoring with Taylor Swift and not enough scoring on the football field. Ooh, bad lighting going on there. Yes, definitely. Ooh, bad lighting. And then finally, how about starving Marvin Harrison Jr.? Stink, stank, stunk. Now, to be fair, he is a rookie, but yes, he did not put up the numbers as expected. This guy was taken maybe in the 3rd round, maybe 2nd. A lot of things expected from him. I think, Malik Neighbors was as advertised, and I still don't even think he put up the numbers that he could have. Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe you got blacklisted at Hop Sings. That's right.
No, got blacklisted at Soup Nazi.
That's right.
Soup Nazi, got blacklisted Soup Nazi. All right. Well, my list of fantasy groups, as I said, what have I got to complain about? 3 teams, 3 first-round buys. I got 1 championship berth already, and I got 2 semifinals. I mean, I'm not doing too badly. But Cooper Kupp, I got a problem with you. Cooper, Blutarski's grade point average, 0.0. You cannot do that. And Cooper Kupp has been decent this year, but how many people did he screw Week 15 with nothing. And you mentioned Debo. Debo with a huge drop in that game for the 49ers. Yeah, he could have won the game if he caught the ball. That was a touchdown pass. And he dropped it. And so Debo's on your list. Cooper Kupp, you're on my list. You know, I thought you were doing well. Oh, 0. Mr. Blutarski, 0.0. Sorry, gotta go. I know of a Seinfeld equivalent on that one, but you want to be my latex salesman?
That's right. There you go.
Okay, moving on. Caleb Williams, you stink. Okay, the Chicago Bears offense, they stink. They're awful. I got a big problem with them. I mean, your coach is awful. We knew that during Hard Knocks. His clock management skills stunk. And Caleb, no, not doing it. You're not that. And last Monday night, you sitting on the bench rolling your eyes. Not a good look. It's tough. You stink. Go back to painting your fingernails. Oh, man. And Roma Dunze, you also stink. Is it the problem because of your quarterback? No, it's because you stink. The Bears are just terrible. I know at this point you're probably saying, oh, it's time for Tripp to rip on the Giants. What am I going to rip on? They stink. You know, they're terrible. If you have any of the Giants in fantasy, you're a moron. I'm sorry. Although I should say Tyrone Tracy's been pretty good. I mean, that's the lone bright spot for the Giants. Last but not least, fantasy-wise, Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard went, I think, between the 6th and the 9th round. He's Aaron Rodgers' guy. He's going to be great. He's number 2 behind Garrett Wilson. He's going to be good. Alan Lazard, you stink. You're awful. The Fantasy Sultans have you on our list of fantasy grievances. All right. Before we get to the feats of strength, you taking on Sharon again.
No, I'm going to have to be taking on Mac in the Best Buy League.
Mac, that's right. Yeah, yes. You'll take on Mac in the Fantasy Sultans feats of strength. Let's move on. Import exports. Week 16. Again, it's tough because there's not a lot out there.
Yeah.
But and I think I made some moves this week, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. But I made some moves, and it was more to try and keep them from another team than my need. You understand? I was playing, good defense sometimes, good offense is sometimes a good defense. And that's part of what I was doing. Mike, who you got on your import-exports list for week 16?
Well, I'm going to start with Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. Now, much like CJ Stroud at the beginning of the season, I really wasn't feeling Richardson. He struggled at the beginning of the year, was benched in favor of Joe Flacco, came back, put in better performances. And you might be surprised he's in about 45% of leagues that he is available. And, this might be the time to grab him. He's not turned in an impressive performance last week. But you know what? He's got a favorable matchup against Tennessee next on the schedule. Then he plays the Giants, and they gave up 5 touchdowns to Baltimore. So this might be the time to grab him. All right, let's go to New Orleans running back Kendre Miller. Probably you would not consider Miller previously because of Alvin Kamara, but Alvin Kamara has a groin injury, may not be able to play Monday night against Green Bay. And if you pick up Miller, he's got a flex starter position written all over the place. He is available in the majority of fantasy leagues. You want a receiver that has the confidence you need? Well, then you want Quentin Johnson in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Now, he has been hot the past 2 weeks, scoring a combined 31 points with a touchdown in each contest. He gets Kansas City and New England in the final 2 weeks of the fantasy calendar. And I don't know about you, but that is a good, favorable matchup for him. Joshua Palmer got the looks last week, but it was Johnston wowing managers and getting the job done. So he's my big 3. Or he's one of my big 3 for the import department this week.
All right. I got some imports for you. First of all, as I said, I was at the Jets-Jacksonville game on Sunday. And one of the guys who really surprised me, tight end Brandon Strange. Now, you should be set. But if you need somebody and you need maybe to pick a flex starter, his name was certainly called a lot. He's got some chemistry with Mac Jones, the quarterback in Jacksonville. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be a huge pick, but if you need a tight end or you need someone in a flex position, he could be a guy. And Jacksonville's schedule is favorable down the stretch. But, again, you're talking about one of the teams that's going to vie for a high draft choice. Wide receiver, looking down the list here, Malik Washington for Miami. Again, available in a lot of leagues. If Waddle is out, he's the guy who would be maybe a desperation play. But if you need somebody, he'd be the one to grab because Miami is in desperation mode. I mean, and we could go, I forgot to mention last week, look at what has happened with Miami's offense this year, and you look at what has happened with Tyreek Hill, and he could have made the list of fantasy grievances easily because he's disappeared. But part of it was Tua, and Tua disappeared last week too. And again, some people got burned by that. And that's something, again, you don't want to have these goose egg performances or low performances when you are in the fantasy playoffs. That's something you really have to worry about. All right, I want to go back to a running back. There's a lot of hype around Jerome Ford. And the reason is because we've talked about he's made the import, he's made the export list this year. And one of the reasons is because he was a value play early on before Chubb came back. And Jerome Ford was the guy who we thought, okay, this Cleveland offense is going to run through him. But then he had a couple of bad weeks, and it was like, okay, Jerome Ford, and he fell out of favor. But now Chubb is out for the season. Jerome Ford is back there. He's somebody you want to grab. The problem is you grab him early this week, and then the Browns go and change quarterbacks. I really think the Browns offense, you might want to temper your expectations with Jerome Ford. But again, if you have a couple of injuries, he could be a guy. He's going to be RB1. Even though it's going to be a split backfield in Cleveland, I still think he's going to be the guy that'll get you the runs, and he can flash at times some really good performances. So down the stretch, he's somebody you're going to want to grab this week. Those are my imports this week. No exports. I mean, we had the grievances, so there you go. You can substitute exports for grievances because that's the way it is, But if you've gotten this far, congratulations. That's good. Hopefully, we helped you along the way. I mean, I think that we're not going to do our fantasy review for a couple of weeks, but I think the one good thing we said, and you touched on it on your grievances with Deebo Samuel. I mean, we were not high on San Francisco this year. I think they're probably the most disappointing fantasy offense this year. I can't think of another offense that has disappointed as much as them. I mean, maybe Atlanta. I mean,
maybe Miami.
Miami too, but yeah, Miami and Kansas City too. It's funny because, I think Patrick Mahomes could easily have made the fantasy grievances list this year because a lot of people grabbed him. And again, I think part of it was there was a run on quarterbacks early this year. Everybody was grabbing a quarterback. And people said, oh, Patrick Mahomes, he's great. Well, I know Patrick Mahomes is great. Don't get me wrong. But, that Chief offense had a lot of injuries this year. He had nobody to throw to, although D-Hop has helped him down the stretch. Really has. And Isaiah Pacheco coming back has helped a little bit. But yet, Kareem Hunt had a couple of weeks there. Kansas City is just getting by. And this stat is amazing. And I saw this last week late. 5 teams in the NFL going into week 15 had not scored more than 30 points in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Giants, Vegas Raiders, Jets, Jacksonville, and the Kansas City Chiefs. and the Chiefs, Chiefs are the only one with a winning record.
Yeah, that's just surprising to me to hear that stat as well, because you think about it, they've been in one score games a lot this season. And we talked about it on our Sunday with the Sultans show about, performers getting it done. And, on the other side of it, you got Cincinnati, who was in one score games, and they're on the losing aspect of things. So, it all just comes down to game managers, the performers. We talked about how Aaron Rodgers not doing it for the Jets, and the game performances, and Patrick Mahomes is, and they win in these close games. And this is how Kansas City, I mean, this is what they live on, is to be in these close situations, and they're still going to win. So, again, it's something to watch down the stretch, and you wonder, it's all going to depend on home field advantage, because obviously if Buffalo gets the 1 seed, it's a different story here. But right now, Kansas City is certainly looking to get that number 1 seed. All they got to do is win 2 out of the next 3, and they have it.
We are the Fantasy Sultans. We, of course, come to you on YouTube and Spotify for podcasters, but we have a Sunday with the Fantasy Sultans radio show. Mike, tell them where they can hear it.
Yeah, you could hear us on Fox Sports Radio, New Jersey. You could hear us on 93.5 FM, 1450 AM in Central Jersey. Also on 100.1 HD3 and 95.9 HD3 at the Jersey Shore. We're also on Fox Sports Radio, New Jersey.com. Check us out there. Sunday with the Fantasy Sultans, Sunday at noon. And I just want to say really quick,
yeah,
before we go, Tripp, I think this holiday is a little out there. I love it. I love it. We love it every year, Festivus, but it's out there.
The poll goes back into the crawl space. Got to put the poll back in the crawl space.
Yeah.
If you've got questions or comments, or you want some situations answered, we would love to hear from you. FantasySultans@gmail.com. Don't forget about my other podcast, Tripp's Take. You can hear that in the same spots you find this: Spotify for podcasters or YouTube. Just search for Tripp's Take. Like the music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, listen to WTRSradio.com online. And, of course, Christmas Day, all kinds of Christmas specials as Christmas special music. That's what it's all about. Now, again, just to reiterate, the Sultans will not leave you high and dry. You will be merry. We will be jolly, and it'll be a jolly holly Festivus and Fantasy Sultan holiday. We will get the podcast. I don't want to say a specific time because, well, we don't know when we're going to do it. But again, we're going to do it probably at some point on Christmas Eve, and we will then upload it that night. So you will have the information, because you got 2 games on Christmas Day, a game on Thursday, Chicago and Seattle. That's going to be awful. And Al Michaels will say that. Saturday games, Sunday games, Monday games, we'll have it for you. We're going to help you make this a season. Again, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. I'm blessed. I get to work with a Hall of Famer. I've done really well in fantasy this year. Of course, it'll all probably blow up on me this week, but I'm just saying, But we try to help you. We're here. We're givers. We're givers. We're giving you entertainment. The Sultans. It's Fantasy Festivus. We are the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.